Hi, welcome back to Joe Blogs. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about what's happening in the UK economy and specifically to talk about the leader, Keir Starmer, because it goes from bad to worse because there's just been a poll taken of the UK public and he's now officially the worst Prime Minister in UK history. If we look at this poll result taken by Ipsos, it asks the question: are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the government, Keir Starmer as Prime Minister, and then three of the other leaders? And you can see that 82% of the UK population said that they are currently dissatisfied with the government, and only 12% said that they were satisfied. And let's not forget that Labour was voted into power in July last year. So they've only actually been governing the country for around 14 months. So they were obviously quite popular back at the time when they were voted in, but things have changed significantly. And in terms of the popularity of Keir Starmer, 79% of the UK population have said that they are dissatisfied with the job that he is doing, and only 13% are satisfied. Now, if we have a look at the history of these polls, this chart shows the worst performances of any UK leader dating back to Margaret Thatcher back in the 1990s. And what we've got here is the satisfied section on the left. So these are the people who've said, yes, they were satisfied with that Prime Minister at the time. And the red section on the right shows the percentage that are dissatisfied. So we've just seen Keir Starmer, 79% dissatisfied. So what that means when you've got 13% saying we like him and 79 saying we don't, the net satisfied level is minus 66. So 66% are saying they are totally dissatisfied when you net off the 13% positive. The next worst performance out of all of these prime ministers, and let's not forget that this includes Liz Truss, who was only in power for about 40 days. The next worst performance was John Major back in the 1990s. He had a negative rating of minus 59, followed by Rishi Sunak, who's also come in at that level. He was the previous Prime Minister before Keir Starmer. So that sort of gives you an indication as to the problems that are going on in the UK right now. The last two Prime Ministers are some of the most unpopular in history. Now, interestingly, the next least popular Prime Minister was Margaret Thatcher at a rating of minus 56. But I think you have to take into account that Margaret Thatcher was actually in power for a long period of time. She was voted in on three separate occasions. So this was at the end of her period as PM. So towards the end of the 1980s, the UK wasn't going particularly well. It was heading for a deep recession. It was actually in a deep recession. And so she became very unpopular towards the end of her tenure. I think if it had been taken at the start of her tenure or maybe midway through, the rating would have been very different to that. The next two on this list were Liz Truss, who was only in power for 40 days, pretty much universally seen as being a disastrous period of leadership, equal to Gordon Brown at minus 51. And Gordon Brown actually inherited the role of Prime Minister from Tony Blair. Labour were voted into power with Tony Blair as leader. He then left following the weapons of mass destruction and all of that. And so Gordon Brown was never actually voted by the UK population. And those sort of prime ministers don't tend to have huge amounts of popularity. It's similar to Rishi Sunak. He took over from Boris Johnson and so wasn't actually voted in by the population. Next on the list is Boris Johnson himself with a minus 46 rating. Became very unpopular, particularly towards the end of the prime ministership when lots of things came to light that had been happening. And then equal below those are Theresa May and Tony Blair. And again, this is at the low point of these people's popularity. Clearly, Tony Blair was popular for a period, but not at the end. But the overall takeaway from this table is that the most unpopular prime minister out of anybody on this list is Keir Starmer, who's the current Prime Minister. And if we have a look at this statement that's been issued by Ipsos, it says Keir Starmer's personal satisfaction ratings are the worst for any Prime Minister polled by Ipsos since we first started asking the question in 1977, which shows the scale of the task facing him ahead of the Labour conference. Labour's share of the vote is the lowest we have recorded since 2009 and has dipped 3 points since June, following a difficult start to the autumn in which he lost his Deputy Prime Minister and his ambassador to the US, and is now facing talk of a potential leadership challenge. But Labour's issues are deeper than changes in personnel. They are losing votes to both left and right, with the public still pessimistic about the state of the economy, immigration, and public services, despite his planned relaunch to put a renewed focus on delivery. With a crucial budget ahead, Rachel Reeves' personal ratings are comparable to Kwasi Kwarteng after the notorious October 22 budget that was alongside Liz Truss, which shows how important it is for the government to start turning around public worries over the economy and public services. Now, as part of this same poll, the question was asked as to who do you intend to vote for in the next general election? And you can see from this chart that Reform UK, led by Nigel Farage, are leading the way. 34% of the people who responded said they were going to vote Reform. Only 22% said Labour. 14% Conservatives, and they were the leaders before Labour came into power. 12% the Lib Dems, 12% the Green Party, and 6% the others. And in terms of who would be the most capable Prime Minister, well, the answer to that question was Nigel Farage. 25% said that they believe he would be the best Prime Minister. Keir Starmer only received 19% support, and he's currently the Prime Minister. And Kemi Badenoch only got 9% of the responses. So I wanted to post this quick video, really just giving you an update as to what the current thinking is in the UK with regards to the existing Prime Minister. Keir Starmer has been voted as officially the most unpopular Prime Minister ever, well, certainly since 1977, when Ipsos started taking these polls. That obviously doesn't bode particularly well for the next general election, whenever that may be. But also there are now rumours that there is a potential leadership challenge that may be put forward in the Labour Party. They won't want to go into the next election with a leader that's very unpopular, so maybe they will try to change the personnel. But will that solve the problem? Is the fact that Keir Starmer is the most unpopular Prime Minister down to himself, or is it down to what the Labour Party are doing and their policies and the way the UK economy is going at the moment? Well, I'll leave you to work that one out, and we'll work out what happens over the next few weeks and months and whether or not a leadership challenge does emerge. But I thought it was worth posting this video. It was an interesting poll, interesting takeaway, and I thought I'd share it with you. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's video, you found it useful, informative, and thought-provoking. If you've liked what I've said, then please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you to everyone that's supported me, particularly over on Patreon, where you can find lots of my videos and you'll be able to watch them advert-free. And here's something to put a smile on your face.